seen on web pages, right? Like red-eyed tree frogs of Venezuela and all. This is something which is very dark brownish in color, which sits inside the water kind of thing. But for me, this is where the journey began. So it began in the year 2001, as you can see here. So that was the first time that we described a frog species, and that was first time for me as a person who is doing a PhD. And you know that if you have a species in like which if you describe, your name will be there forever. The great example is Carlos Linnaeus, who is father of taxonomy. His name is forever now because he has named Homo sapiens. That is, we the human beings, right? So he has put Homo sapiens Lin at the end. So Lin means Linnaeus. Similarly, when we describe a species, we don't have to have any award and all. This itself is a great recognition, saying that you have described a species. So for me also, Nyctobatrachus husseini was my first discovery. But later on, due to certain taxonomical issues, we described it as Nyctobatrachus karnatakensis. These both two are now called as synonyms. Okay, that is where the journey started. Uh, Before I get deeper into what my journey of behavior study of Nyctobatrachus, I just want to talk about what amphibians are. But I will not go deeper into it because I have done this in the previous workshop. Amphibians are animals which have two life stages. This is what Linnaeus said in 1758. So what is their first stage? The first stage will look like this. It is full of, it's a tadpole condition. In tadpole condition, they may live in water, they may not live in water. It doesn't matter. But as long as they have a tadpole condition, that is what is important. And then they develop into the same tadpoles will develop into something like this. These are the adult individuals. So can you see the image over here? That is where they become adult, right? So if an animal has two life stages, they are called amphibians. Why butterflies are not considered amphibians? You pretty well know. Butterflies are invertebrates, so they cannot be considered as amphibians. Okay. I will move on. So this is the general diversity. We have highest number of frogs and toads in the world, followed by salamanders, and then we have Sicilians as the third group. These are the three major orders. So frogs and toads are available everywhere in the world except Sahara and Arctic region. Whereas salamanders are available in temperate regions. Exception is South America. Whereas Sicilians are very much tropical in nature. You can't find them in any temperate region. Coming to Indian scenario, we have about 465 species. Two of them are salamanders. We have about 40 Sicilians, and remaining are all anurans, frogs, and toads. This is the discovery pattern. Again, I will not go into it. I'm just showing this so that where we are, we need to really understand, right? So people keep talking about new discoveries and all, and I was also part of that discovery. I'm still discovering new species, but that shouldn't where we stop. We should move beyond. So when I was writing my thesis, I said there are 220 species of amphibians in the world, but now, 220 species of amphibians in India. Now we are already 465 species, already almost doubled, right? And it's also that last 20 years we have increased the number to about 40% of the total. That means last 20 years, every year we are describing almost 11 or 12 species per year. So those who are looking for a biological world where we can go further and study, this is one opportunity where you guys can actually join in for frog surveys. Frog research can be your major topic in your master's program or bachelor's program to look into. And then you will definitely have your name in the amphibian world. Okay, let us quickly look into what is the status of amphibians in India. So this is the status. Many of the species which were earlier critically endangered, the number is coming down. But what is quite interesting is that number of species which we had not known what is the status, their number is increasing, and all others are also increasing. Endangered species are almost doubling, vulnerable species are doubling, near threatened species are doubling. So it's an indication that many species are being added due to the loss of habitats and all. They are in the critical survival time as of now. Okay. Only if we all take real cognizance of their habitat and ecology, we are going to conserve them. Otherwise, we are going to have a doomsday in the frog world. So why declining happening? Fragmentation, climate change, introduced species, chemical contamination, and all. I won't go into that. Now I will come back to my ecological work, behavioral ecological work. So I started with what does the species Nyctibatrachus that we described is going to eat. So in behavioral ecology, that's what it starts with. Behavior is like what is the response to a stimuli or why certain things are being made, right? But in order to go there, we first need to understand what is the ecological function of the species, where it stays, what it eats, what is the temperature, what is the food availability, how does it eat like us, or does it have any other mechanism? So I started with looking at a species called Nyctibatrachus, Hosseini or Karnatakensis as of now, and then we looked into what it feeds on. I also looked into their temperature, where it is available, what pH it will be available, at what temperature they can be available, kind of. That was my starting study. That's part of my PhD. So that's also led me to understand how these species are diverse. Let us say if I'm talking about Nyctibatrachus, that's one of the family in the Western Ghats, which has three genus within them or three genera within them. Okay, one genus is called Nyctibatrachus, other is called Astrobatrachus, and the third one is known as Lancanectus. Lancanectus species is available in Sri Lanka, which doesn't relate in terms of its habitat with Western Ghats species. Lancanectus is a pool dwelling frog, whereas Astrobatrachus and Nyctibatrachus are stream dwelling frogs in the Western Ghats. So if you are going anywhere closer to Coorg, Agumbe, or Wayanad, or even Maharashtra, Amboli, Goa, and all, you will be coming across these species. What is so unique about this species is that there are smallest species in this Nyctibatrachus family. That's called Nyctibatrachus minimus, which can sit on the thumbnail. That's the smallest. And we also have a largest species, which is called Nyctibatrachus grandis, which can sit on the palm. Like if you keep the frog, it can sit on your palm. That's the size, right? So that's the size variation. But if you look at, like we call it as molecular clock or molecular time period when they evolved and all, this particular night frog family evolved somewhere around 50 to 60 million years ago in the Western Ghats, and it is one of the oldest family. So you have something called pig-nosed frog family. That's the oldest in India, which is about 80 to 90 million years old. For us, old is that much. Okay, million years only we talk about. We don't talk in 100 years kind of. So Nyctibatrachus is about 40 to 50, sorry, 60 to 40 to 60 million years old, and it's one among the oldest families. And as I said, they have size as small as 12 mm to a size of something like 80 mm. So that's the size differences. So researchers like Boxley, Biju and all, they worked on how they are distributed and they try to look at it. They said that each hill in the Western Ghats has a unique species of Nyctibatrachus, right? So that's what they came up with. Don't worry about all these graphs and all. This is just to say there are so many aspects to look into the amphibian world. So what I did was I started looking at the distribution from top. Let us say if you are taking a flight and if you start from southern tip of Western Ghats and you travel all the way till Koina Dam, where do you get what kind of species? So when I mapped it, it was very clear for me that the larger species, larger sized individuals, and which are capable of climbing onto trees, are all available in the northern part of the Western Ghats. So if you see Western Ghats is starting from here at around 8 degree north and it goes up to 21 degree north till Dangs in Gujarat. Okay. So what we do is generally we cut it every 4 degrees, saying that this is southern part of Western Ghats, this is central part of Western Ghats, and this is northern part of Western Ghats. So in the northern part of Western Ghats, starting from up above Uttar Kannada district or Goa Karnataka border, Goa Karnataka Maharashtra border to the Dangs of Gujarat, to see that there is large size Nyctibatrachus. Okay, and they are all arboreal in the sense they are capable. They stop dwelling in the stream, but they start going onto the tree. Whereas if you come to the central part of the Western Ghats, it's a mixture of both large and small. If you are in the southern part of the Western Ghats, small size individuals predominate. There are very high number of small sized species, right? So now the question is, what is that on the behavioral front we are seeing? So we are now know about 36 species of Nyctobatrachus available and one species of Astrobatrachus. So what do these species do? So for me, that opening happened in the year 2006. That was June 26th. It's about how many years now? It's about 16 years, right, ago. So what did I see? I saw that there is a frog which is standing like this, okay, and there was a female frog sitting like that. First time ever, I'm seeing a frog standing like a human being. That is where my question started opening up, saying that, oh, I'm seeing a frog which stands like human being and it is touching the. Can you see here? It is touching a wood log over there. So I was thinking why it is doing. Is it trying to do a push-up? Like how you go to gym and do the push-up, no? I thought this frog may be doing like a push-up. And that is where I then switched from my typical systematic taxonomic work to sitting in front of a frog and trying to observe for long hours. So what I do is I will take a tripod stool in the forest. If I'm seeing a frog, I will sit in front of it for 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours sometimes, kind of. So that has helped me a lot to identify a behavioral part in this particular fraud. So it started as a natural history observation. So all the behavior studies starts generally as a natural history observation. For example, this particular one is also a natural history observation where I found that when I was in the field, I'm looking at a frog. The frog is not squatting in the water, but it is standing up like a human being and touching the twig. So what is the thing? So when we start asking this particular question of what is that we are observing and why that particular behavior is happening, or to be precise, like I said in the beginning, why a species is doing what it is doing. If you are able to find the answer, that is when it becomes behavioral ecological studies. So we are trying to find an answer for the kind of actions that a species is doing. So in this case, I was not only one time it is observing. Now in my life, I have observed more than 40 times this particular observation. So the last time when I was in Katlekan, I was able to see this particular same species, but again standing upright and pushing a small twig. In fact, it was not pushing a small twig. You can see a small egg over there. So that is where my naturalist started going towards the behavioral ecology. Now, why this species is doing what it is doing? So let us go and see this particular video, which is called Breeding Behavior of Kumbara Night Frog. And that will tell you the story, what I am talking about. In this video, you can see that it may not have any audio, don't worry about it. So what you can see is, there is a male frog somewhere here, makes a sound like talk talk. There is a female here. The female stands upright on its hind limb. She touches the twig over here. And then male and female get into amplexus is where male and female sit together. So the female is larger, she is here, male is smaller. At the time of release of eggs, male and female do a handstand. Handstand is putting your hand down like a yogasana, Shirsasana. And what does the female do? She places the eggs on the twig that she has touched. Look at this. The eggs are released, the female lays all over there. And I thought that's the end of the story. But no, the story doesn't end. The male comes back. He takes the mud in the hand and he plastered mud onto these. Hope you are able to see it. If you are not able to see it, just let me know so that I can. So the male is taking the mud from it and it is plastering. So many instances I have seen it is plastering for about 130 times, 140 times and all. Now obviously the question is why do the frog what it is doing? That's the behavioral ecology, right? So that is where I started figuring out what could be the reason. Where else it is doing? Is it for something? So obvious reason anybody will tell is, oh, that's because it wants to prevent the egg from drying. Okay, or it could be to prevent it from eating So eaten by some predator, right? So those eggs are very visible because it has an animal pole and a vegetal pole. Animal poles are generally brownish in color. Vegetal poles are creamish white in color. So that's what happened. And desiccation cannot be a reason over here because it's the Western Ghats, and majority of these amphibians breed in the stream and during the monsoon. So desiccation was ruled out. The other aspect we try to see is then it must be some predator. So what could be the predator? So thankfully there were two filmmakers who joined for the field work, and they were filming on their own. So they found that there is a crab species that feeds on the eggs of Nyctibatrachus, and hence it is plastering it to say that it camouflages with the background. So a crab may not be able to see where are the eggs. So that is the behavior, right? And for that it is standing and doing. Excuse me. So now we know an answer that for the egg plastering is mainly to camouflage. Now, by doing so, the frog is actually exposed itself for predators because it is that vulnerable position in which the frog is standing on the two legs, right? So anything can come and catch it. When it is on its foreleg, anything comes closer, it can jump and run away. But when it is on its two legs, it is not like human beings who can do a sprint, right? So it will be vulnerable. So our question is now moving towards asking the question why the frog is actually taking the risk of standing upright and trying to plaster. So there may be an answer, something called as handicap principle, which a Israeli scientist called Amod Zahavi had proposed way back. What is a handicap principle? A handicap principle is a way where the frog is actually putting itself under threat, but is trying to impress a female. But in this case, the female is already laid the eggs. No, where is the point of impressing the female? The frog, in fact, is not impressing the female with which it has mated. Frog is perhaps impressing the other females in that area to look at him, saying that, oh, this particular frog is such a good male individual who takes the risk of proning like himself for a predator to eat, but he is capable of blasting those eggs. He is taking the risk of carrying the young ones. Female may be impressed, right? Many of the times, even as teenagers and sometimes even adults, we also do some kind of a show off, no, to impress some female, right? So, for example, when you do a wheeling or biking, it is a dangerous and deadly act, but you are trying to impress somebody. So these are called as honest signals. And please do not practice any of those things. That is not my intention. What I'm trying to say is that as a human being or as an animal, we have certain instincts on which we do develop our behavior. So wheeling is one such behavior. Or perhaps somebody coming in a Benz car or limousine car and or having a big good Swiss watch to show off. These are all the way in which they are trying to tell that we are capable of having this watch. It means that we have plenty of money and we can take care of you too, to the counterpart. Perhaps in a similar way, this Kumbara frog, putting itself under threat, it is trying to show that it is capable of plastering the eggs. So that is my other part of the research is still on trying to ensure that this speculative understanding of honest signaling we are yet to test. But this is what we are looking at now. So where in any other species similar kind of parental care is happening, if it is happening, why it is happening, and what is the cost and benefit in doing so. So, and what is the proximal response for this behavior, and what is the long-term response for these kind of behavior. So that is one behavioral aspect. And if you guys don't understand any of these things, don't worry about it. This is like if you even understand that frogs are not just about amphibians and number of species, that is a good point of our conversation. Okay. So you can go back in the field and try to see even the commonest frog in your area, wherever you are. If you can see how they mate, where they lay eggs, that could be a starting point for your behavioral ecological studies. Okay. I will stop here for a couple of minutes so that you guys can think about it. and you can have your own questions also for me. I will take it at the end. So finally, this particular observations got published in Zoo Taxa. We said that there's a mud packing frog and there's a novel behavior and a parental care. In addition, that was a new species of frog. So what happens in parental care? So male and female actually touch each other. They get into amplexus. They courtship. They lay the eggs. Female goes off. The male comes back and plasters the egg. That was the kumbara. So I didn't stop here. So that is the inquisitiveness of any science doing person. Okay, any researcher for that matter. It is not that we stop at discovering one thing and then say, oh, we are done, right? We need to push ourselves every time when we see some observations, and that is what keep us moving. Okay, that is what keep us ticking, what we call in English, right? So I said, okay, so if we are looking at Nyctipetracus family itself, I have observed only one species. Now there are 35 more species to look at. What happens in other species? So I started looking at another species called Nyctipetracus kempolensis. Now, Kumbara is about 45 to 50 millimeters in size. It's of this much size, okay, this much size. Now, I'm looking at another species called Kempolensis, which is about this much of size, about 25 to 30, 32 millimeters in size. I don't know whether this plays. I will play it, and if you hear the sound, it would be great if you're able to hear that. Otherwise, also it's fine. So, if you look at Kempole, it is very small sized individuals. And here you can see it is same as Kumbara species. They're doing a handstand. Female is laying the eggs over there. There's another female waiting to mate, and that's what it does. And the male, instead of mud plastering here, he just comes over, touches all these eggs with the snout, and moves, goes back. So that's what he does. So this is completely unlike the Kumbara frog. Kempole frog does it, just laying the eggs without any plastic. There is another species called jognite frog, which visuals like this, like, right? So you can see that this species is capable of climbing onto trees, right? Here, the first species I showed, Kumbara, was very close to the ground and it was laying eggs on the twig, okay? And Kempole was laying the eggs inside the leaf litter. Now there is a third species called jognite frog. It is capable of climbing onto trees, and it is laying the eggs on the leaves itself, right? It is not putting anywhere else. It is putting on the leaves. The male is sitting here, female is sitting here. And if you observe very carefully, there is no amplexus, what we call like typical amplexus where male holds the female by the armpit. Here it is just keeping the hand on the top of a leaf. Okay, these kind of amplexus are called straddle amplex. Whereas in the previous one, where male is holding the female like this, is called axial amplex. Okay. Again, don't worry about technical terms. You will, if you feel any point in time you are unable to understand all these things, you can refer to dictionaries or you can email me saying that Guru, I didn't understand any of this thing. Can you come back to us? We can do that. So joke behaves like this. Kempole behaves like this, Kumbara behaves like this. What else in store? When I moved further, and further in the sense, in the spatial extent of Western Ghats, in the northern part of Western Ghats, in Maharashtra and all, there is another species called Humayuni night frog. Humayuni night frog is also capable of climbing onto trees, but he is similar to what Job night frog does. It will either uh, lay eggs on a rock surface above water, far above water, or on a tree trunk and leaves the eggs over there. It is almost same way. There is one more species called now, yeah, this is how Humayuni lays the egg. It was one was on the rock surface, this is on the leaf surface. Exactly same to that of Job night frog. There is another species called Petra. It also does its eggs laid onto on the leaves. There is another species, not north, but further south, which is called as Nyctipetracus grandis. I will see whether I can. Yeah, that's the sound. Pom pom is the sound. Where it lays the exactly like Kumbara frog, but lays large number of eggs. Kumbara frog lays about 6 to 8 eggs, whereas this particular frog lays up to 32 eggs, and there is no plastering of eggs, right? So for those who want to really look into how the how the grandest frog. Sorry, sorry. Okay. Uh, Sorry about that. So if you, okay. So if you just see the how the grandest is there, right? Forward, same as Kumpara, stepping onto the rock surface, they go over there, right? And then it moves on. So if I come back to this presentation, give me a minute. Yeah. So if you, yeah, that's the Kumbara, sorry, that's the Grandis breeding behavior. It is similar to that of Kumbara. So I thought, what could be the behavior, why it is so much diverse in the Nyctipetracus? Okay. And again, I have not even seen all the 36 now. I have only seen 6 or 7 of them. So for me, this entire behavior looked like what Darwin has proposed for his Darwin finches. Have you heard about Darwin finches? So Darwin finches, when they are all in the large mainland, their beaks are modified to pick different food sources, right? Because there will be competition for food, they can't have similar kind of food. So one will be nectar feeding, another one will be grain feeding, another one will be insect feeding. So based on that, the beaks are modified. So I thought it could be same here in terms of Nyctipetracus, because if there are 3 or 4 species in the same locality, they breed differently. But if they are in the different localities which are far from each other, then they have same kind of behavior. So that is when it happened that Nyctipetracus kumbara, Joe, and Kempole, when they are together, their breeding behavior is completely different. Whereas Petraeus, Jog, and Humayuni, which are on different localities, they have similar kind of breeding behavior. This kind of behavior is called reproductive character displacement. Why it happens? Because they don't want to crossbreed with the other species. So if Kumbara also breeds like, let us say, Humayuni, Kempole also breeds like Humayuni, and they are all together, there is a possibility that Kumbara may mate with Humayuni or Humayuni may mate with Kempole. They have a difference in their breeding behavior, they will not crossbreed, and that is one of the main reasons for them to have this reproductive character displacement. Okay, so I will now take you to another key research of mine. I will switch from having reproductive character displacement as one of the behavioral ecological study. Now I will take you to the another world of frogs called dancing frogs. And also please remind me how much more time I have with me, so that it will be helpful for me to formulate my other part of the thing. Okay. So I'm now uh, moving on to the dancing frogs world. Yeah. So in dancing frogs, so when you
Sir,
saw the dancing frogs,
sir, sorry for interruption.
sorry,
Sorry for interruption. Anthony here.
sorry,
Yes. Sir, Anthony is speaking here. Sorry.
Anthony. Yes, yes.
Sir, we have another 35 minutes, sir.
Ha.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, okay. Sure, 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 sure. And I may require about 2 minutes of break in between.
That's okay, fine, sir. Take care.
Yeah, yeah. So I will just start this and I will take a break for 2 minutes and come back. Okay. So this is another world of frogs called dancing frogs, uh, which yeah I it sound will be like this. It will grow. Yeah, that's how they grow. Okay, and then if that was croaking like that, that my story would have ended. But what happens is you should see this video, and then I will wait for like if you can observe carefully, this frog has done something. This frog is also doing something, right? They're called foot flagging behavior. They are sitting next to each, then they show off and kick each other, show off the look at that. they move parallel to each other. Like they are moving like one moves like other moves like. Okay? So goes like one comes like. And then the flag, then look at the flag, then that's the kick. Yeah, that's the kick. So the question was this beautiful behavior. There's called foot flagging, fantastic. But why do what they are doing? So we are back into the behavior ecology, saying that okay, we have taken a good movie picture. Now we need to understand why this is doing what it is doing. I'm taking a small break over here and mull over the question, what I have asked. You can re-look into the question, or you can come up with the question. And okay, think why the males are doing like this. Is also a male. This is also a male. There is no female here. Both are why doing what they're doing. Okay? We'll take a break, Anthony. Then I will give me a minute break. Okay? Yeah. Okay. I needed some water. Yeah. Hope you were able to think through the questions, right? So let us move forward. So why do this particular frog dance? So initially, I think I had a impression from Hindi movies and all. I was thinking that this frog is perhaps showing off its strength, saying that okay, I'm more capable and to impress a female. Okay, but it took about 8 to 9 years for me to really understand what it was having, because this video was made in 2004 and we were able to publish in 2013. Why actually it is doing what it was doing? Any idea why it was doing? Okay, I will take you through. So why it was doing before that, let us just understand where the frog was. So this is this particular Kotigahara dancing frog we were observing from Katrekan forest, which is very close to Mavingundi, about 8 kilometers from there, further south. So further west when you go towards Honavar. Uh, and it's a very small sized species, which is like 20, 29 to 35, 35, 38 millimeters in size. This is male, this is female. And with that, I also had some observations on the breeding behavior. I will come back to that later after a couple of slides. I will do is I will show you what was the behavior that we were able to observe. So what we did was, it is not my own study. I was with Dr. Doris, who was my collaborator, and they are the ones who also provided me a better insight in understanding what it happens. And what we did was something called activity budgeting or activity time. Now, in technical parlance, this is called as ethnographs. Okay, ethographs. Sorry, not ethnographs. These are called ethographs. So etho is behavior. So what is the behavior? So what we try to do is between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. for the
Sir, audio is muted, sir. Hello. Audio is muted, sir. Hello, Gururaj, sir. Your audio is muted.
35. How many behaviors? 7 to 75, 7:30 to 7:35. Like this, we went on till last one, which was between 6 p.m. to 6:05 p.m. So, what is the behavior? So, when we looked at it, it was very clear for us that at 7 to 8 o'clock in the morning and 10 to 11 o'clock in the morning, the frogs calling activity was peak. Okay, they were the highest. So when there is a lot of light, I think the activity was more. So that was one key thing that we were able to understand. So frogs are croaking more during the daytime. These are all called diurnal species, and it was more than the normal number of individuals croaking. It was highest between 7 to 8 a.m. and 10 to 11 a.m. Why it could be? It could be because that is when the forest floor lights up very well, and these frogs are trying to show off their limbs, no, and they need some light. They need some spotlight kind of thing, because there is nobody else to put the light. They have to wait for the sunlight to come and light up the area where they are doing it. So they are looking at the stones on which the light falls, and that is perhaps between this and this time. That is when they are highly active. Okay, so that was one of the thing. Then we also try to see whether this behavior is between, like if we say there are two individuals, one was the individual who was sitting in the place, and the other individual is one who has come from another place. So that individual is one individual, we call it as resident individual. The one who comes from elsewhere is called an intruding individual, right? So then we try to figure out who wins, whether it's a resident individual who is going to win or the intruder is going to win. Is there any difference in that intruder versus resident? So what we found that there is nothing like that. Okay. So it, like many of the times we see that it's an intruder who is leading, but the difference were not so marked, right? It looks like almost all the behavior was almost similar kind of thing, winner versus loser kind of thing, right? So in one sense, it is not a behavior to impress a female. That was a very clear indication for us. We did the all the analysis in any of this event. Neither intruder nor the resident individual used to get a female. Is neither the winner nor the loser used to get the female. So then why it is doing, why these are showing the foot flagging behavior? The foot flagging behavior is more about their territorial behavior, in the sense like how the tiger goes on urinating in different places or making a claw mark on the tree. It is the same way these frogs are trying to say that, okay, they will sit on the rock, and on one rock it will say, this is my rock, and then I will croak, saying that, croak, 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 I have, this is my stone, nobody should come near. And then if there is another individual who comes there, he will also say, croak, 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 don't come near. And if both of them see each other, the first male will say, okay, if you come near, I'm going to kick you. So better don't come. And that is where it flags its foot. But the other individual, if he says, okay, you can also kick, and he shows, then they will sit next to each other. And then that is when the kicking happens. So it is more about their territory. And their territory is not like a tiger's territory of 60 square kilometers. It's a territory of perhaps 100 square centimeters. It's a very, very tiny, small space. And that is, or the top of the stone is their territory. And they are trying to say, this is our territory. Okay, that is what we were able to understand. I will now take you back to my slides where I had stopped. Yeah. So my question was, one was like, why do they do this foot flagging behavior? So I continued with the behavior, and by evening, I was seeing that there were males and females together, and that is what we call as amplexus. Now the male is holding the female by the armpit. This is called axial amplexus, and the female actually carries the male for long distances. And in the frog world, the long distances are in 6 to 7 meters or 10 meters kind of thing, not in kilometers, right? So she moves to the shallowest part of the stream, and then she puts, you can see here in this particular video, even though it is taken from the top, what you can see is that the female is actually making cavity. Can you see her now? See now what she does? Right. She moves her hind limbs fast, that makes a cavity. Why do she make a cavity? She wants to lay her all the eggs inside the cavity. So in the next video, you will see that. So the female has made the cavity. She is putting herself inside it. She put all the eggs inside, and then finally she does this dance on the egg. You can see that there are egg clutches over there, on which she actually puts all the stones, small gravels and stones over it. Now, if you see from the first species I spoke about, which was a Kumbara frog, where frog was taking the mud from the stream and plastering the egg clutch. Now there is a frog here who puts the egg inside the cavity and covers it up with the small gravels and stone. Why do you think it is doing like this? So again, similar kind of question. Is it for desiccation, to avoid desiccation? We don't have an answer as of now, but we are pretty clear that it also perhaps for the same reason as that of uh, Kumbara frog, where it wants to avoid the predator. Now, who is the predator here? If it is a crab, crab is definitely going to search somewhere because they are always inside the water. They perhaps dig somewhere and eat it. So perhaps this dancing frog is trying to influence by covering it up with the gravel so that they will not be able to find it from the surface. Crab has to go dig deeper to find some of these eggs, and that is perhaps the reason for which they are putting eggs like this. So these are the two species actually making me still work on why frogs do food flagging or why do frogs plaster the eggs with the mud. Okay. I further took this species, like I was also part of discovery of new dancing frogs from Western Ghats along with Dr. Biju. I will not speak about that, but now I will move on to what is this particular dancing behavior is. Okay, so not the only dancing frogs in the Western Ghats do the dancing. There are species in Borneo which also does the dancing behavior. One of the species is called Storois latopalmatus. Let me check whether I will be able to click that particular video link. Okay, just a minute. I will see whether I can show that. Yeah. Okay. I will try to show whether it's not. Anyway, so if I hope you are able to see it. Is it not it? Okay, if I share my screen, I will do my screen. Okay, so if I share the screen, yeah, just see that there is a frog species over here. Yeah, please observe that this particular species of frog does the foot flying like that. Okay? Whereas the one that I showed, which was the West Ghats frog. Okay, the Western Ghats dancing frog. This frog doesn't do doesn't show up any silver white color. This is the Kotkara dancing frog. This is the Storois frog, which is from the Bornean island. They have a silver white color, whereas the Western Ghats frog has no silver white color, right? So we felt whether we are still able to picturize something, whether there is some element of coloration that can be shown to the female kind of thing. So Dr. Doris brought her spectrophotometer, which is a pen-based kind of thing. We try to put in each of the part on the web to figure out any color pattern that emerges. So when we mapped it, when we means both Doris and myself, we saw that in Kotikara dancing for there is no color pattern at all. But when we mapped the Bornean species, there is lot of spectral display. Like the color range was all the Vibgaya kind of thing. So it had all the coloration that can be exhibited. In a way, this particular dancing behavior in Bornean Island is completely different from what the frog from the Western Ghat is doing. The Western Ghat frog is dancing mainly to do a territorial behavior, whereas the one which is doing in the Borneo is trying to do or to impress the female. Okay. So we also did something called mapping of the foot flagging behavior. We try to put these are all digital mapping kind of thing. So we put a small dot onto the foot of the dancing frog and see how the foot actually moves. Okay. So and that creates a boundary of the movement of the foot. So if you see, the Bornean frog actually does larger area covering as a boundary, whereas the Kempole frog, the Western Ghat Microchelys corticarensis does a smaller map kind of thing. This also clearly shows that these two frogs are completely different in their behavior and their approach and the whole motivation to do flagging. So we have shown that the motivation behind flagging in the Bornean frog is different because it has a lot of water stream background noise over there. So perhaps that is why it has a silver white color in the foot. So it shows and the female gets impressed. Oh, it's a brilliant coloration over there. But in the Western Ghat species, there's no much background noise. And all the more so, the behavior is meant for looking at another male and saying that you don't come near. It is more about male-male agonistic behavior, not to impress the female. So this was a very clear behavioral ecological studies we were able to do. And again, in Western Ghats, we have about 24 species of dancing frogs. We have done only one now. There are 23 more to go. And we also don't know whether all 23 does the foot flagging behavior. If they are doing, in what way they are different, in what way they are similar, what it is trying to communicate, right? So this was published in Ecological and Herpetological Review. And then we have, and I will move to the last part of the thing, which is on the breeding behavior of the bush frogs. This is the Nilonetrus, and now it is called Coor yellow bush frog. So what happens in now? There was a species called Kumbara frog, which was plastering. There's a frog called dancing frog, which was pushing the leg. Now there is a completely different behavior in this particular species of bush frog, which is called direct development. So amphibians, as I was telling in the beginning, amphibians have two life stages, one as a tadpole and another one as a young one. But in these bush frogs, which has, I don't know if you are able to listen to the sound. If you are able to, then this is the sound. Otherwise, forget it. So the frog actually croaks. Is balloon-like structure that acts as an amplifier, right? And it is croaking here. So once it gets the mate, this is the female, the male. They get into amplexus, and then it lays eggs on the floor, and that eggs actually develops into froglet. There is no free tadpole stages. It doesn't get into the water at all. So this is another species. I was talking about this species earlier. But what I observed finally was direct development in another species called Wienadensis. So they lay the eggs, everything develops within, but finally what comes out is a tiny froglet. And that doesn't have to, like, this doesn't require any water. Whereas if it is a free living tadpole, the frog will hatch into water and tadpoles will go and scrape and then develop into a froglet. Okay. But whereas this particular bush frog, it is skipped the tadpole condition of free living tadpole conditions. Okay. So this is where one needs to now understand why frogs are behaving completely different. Now we have studied in our class saying that frogs have tadpole and frogs have adult stages, and perhaps since they live in water and land, that's why we call amphibians, which is not completely true. Now we have another species or group of species which don't have tadpole free living at all. It all happens within an egg, right? So why then this particular species choose to do a direct development? Is there any reason for that? Or what triggered the species to develop directly? So when we look at the phylogenetic tree, or as I said, on the timeline, when these bush frogs evolved in the Western Ghats, it appears that they are the recent ones to evolve in the Western Ghats. and perhaps recent in the sense it's about 20 million years ago, right? Even like 10 times before human beings evolved. So, but these frogs have found that their dependency on water is not required. Since they are all bush frogs, they want to keep themselves on the bushes. And perhaps that's why they are also reducing the amount of dependency on water. And that is perhaps the reason for which they have a direct developing behavior. So they lay the eggs. By 19th day, you will get a tiny froglet. I tried to do similar kind of behavior studies in another bush frog called the Oaklander bamboo bush frog. So this discovery has happened in the year 2007. I was searching for Kempole night frog in Kakayam area in Kerala, and then I heard a particular sound coming from the bamboo. And when we looked into it, you can see that there is a frog inside. This was the frog, and we called it as Oaklander bush frog. We discovered this species. What was interesting in them is that they have eggs laid within the bamboo. So now you see where all a frog can lay the eggs. We were told in the classroom that frogs will lay eggs in the water, right? It can be a pond, it can be a stream. But now you have a place where frogs are putting the eggs inside a bamboo and they are direct development. And my friend Sheshadri, who is a postdoctoral fellow in Center for Ecological Sciences, he worked on another species called Rauchestus chelasaurs or bubble nesting frog. He found that the frogs, and he used a technique of endoscopy. He put the endoscopy within the bamboo tube and found that the male individuals of the frog are standing next to the eggs. And this was an interesting thing for us, but we didn't know why the frogs are close to the eggs. And he came up with an idea that the male individuals are actually guarding the eggs of their clutch. If they are not there, another male will come and eat away these eggs. So that was his paper. So he published a paper saying that male is required because it has to guard the eggs. So if you start seeing in this manner, you will see that the frog world actually, sorry, frog world opens up for a lot of behavioral studies. So my last part of the discussion is where we are looking at people participation in conservation and again the behavior of a tree toad, which a toad generally stays on the land, but this particular toad is capable of going onto the trees. Okay, where people participated and try to give us the insight on why this particular toad is capable of going onto the trees and all. I won't go in detail about it. It is available online. You can all look it up on frogwatchindiabiodiversity.org, where all the postings are made. Just to show that this particular tree toad is like this. He is an endemic species to the Western Ghats, and first discovery was made in the year 1875. But the second discovery, like second rediscovery, was only done 100 years later, in 1980, 105 years later, 1980, right? Until 2004, there were only 5 records. And that is when I started working with people and saying that, okay, can we map this frog? Now we have about 285 observations across Western Ghats. It's a very common species. And perhaps by end of this year, we may be seeing that this is now a least concerned species. Okay. So the whole idea is that again, for all of you, you can start by looking at a frog, but don't stop there. You can start looking at its ecology, its behavior, and that is where you start understanding that certain behavior are done in order to accommodate the changes or the habitat changes or to the sexual selection in male and female or for better parental care. Okay, so these are some of the reasons on which we need to do the behavioral studies, not to limit ourselves for the checklist of the species. Even among Malabar tree toad, what we now, with people participation, we are understanding is that their behavior or the breeding behavior is quite unique. Southern part of the population breeds early in the monsoon, northern part breeds late in the monsoon. And we are also trying to understand whether climatic change is impacting their distribution. And I think with that, I will stop my presentation. Thank you very much for all your patient listening. If you have questions, I'm more than happy to take them. Thank you very much again. Yeah, I'm done with my presentation.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, 1 minute, sir. I have questions ಒಂದ್ಸಾರಿ ಕೇಳ್ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್ ಮಕ್ಕಳುಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾಳೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು.
Okay. So I have two questions for you guys. One of the question is, what are food flagging frogs? Okay, and why do they do the food flagging? Second one is, what is parental care and why it is essential in the frog world? So there are two questions. What are food flagging frogs and why do they food flag? Second question is, what is parental care and why it is essential in frog world? Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions and responses for this, Anthony?
Sir, I'm checking it, sir. Just wait.
Okay.
Uh, as of now, there is no question, sir.
Wonderful.
If there is any questions, they will mail you.
Yeah.
As you have a mail on your PPT here shown to the participants.
Sure.
Sir. Then, so I'm coming to the end of this session. Thanksgiving. I'm very happy to listen to such a talk from you, sir. There are more than 21 new. I may not say new, but you have discovered it.
Yes.
They are new. They
Yeah,
are in the nature.
Yeah.
Most of us doesn't know most of the things about frogs. Especially in Mangalore side, what we do is we catch the frog, we feed them to catch the fish.
Okay. Yeah.
That is what I know personally. But most of the things I learned from you about the frogs, how they live and what they do. So thank you very much for that insightful talk. I hope most of the students got to know about these frogs and their lifestyle, what they are doing, especially in the Western Ghats. If time permits, I request students to go to the Western Ghats and explore few things. Not
Yeah.
much. You might have traveling many places. On the way, you stop your car or just stop by there, somewhere in between, get down and see all these things. That will be a little bit amazing and interesting too to learn. So, thank you once again, sir.
Thank you. My
And
pleasure.
I thank all the audience who have participated today, spending their valuable time listening to Dr. Gururaj. Thanks, one and all. I thank Dr. S. Ayappan, the chairman of KSTA, CEO, Dr. A. M. Ramesh, who are the backbone of this program. And I also thank our Siddhegowda sir for making this project the talk, but I can say it is a project because it is filled with things, different things. So thanks, Mr. Siddhegowda, for organizing this. Thank you very much, one and all.
Thank you.
Students, please answer the questions as soon as possible. And if there is any questions or any doubts, feel free to reach Dr. Gururaja KV. Either in person, he will be available in Mahe, Bengaluru, and if not possible in personally, please give a test mail to gururaja.kv@manipal.ed. At least a test mail will make a difference. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. Thanks one and all. I'll end this program here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Lecturer